Hi, everyone. I'm Troy Anderson. I'm an InterVarsity alum, and I have the great privilege of helping empower and educate thousands of girls in poverty in Bangladesh through Speak Up for the Poor. Welcome to InterVarsity World Changers.
Hey, alumni, welcome to InterVarsity World Changers, the podcast celebrating God's world-changing work in and through InterVarsity alumni like you. I'm your host, John Steele, and today we're talking with Troy Anderson, a University of Puget Sound alumnus. And Troy and his colleagues are changing the world as they work among impoverished communities in Bangladesh. Their mission, to offer quality education and safe housing to young girls in an effort to keep them out of child marriages, out of the sex trafficking industry, and to empower them to serve the poor in their own communities. Welcome to InterVarsity World Changers, and enjoy Troy's story. Troy, welcome to InterVarsity World Changers.
Thanks, John. I'm glad to be here.
I'm really excited to have you here. Troy, as you shared in the intro, you're going to tell us some stories about the work that you're doing in Bangladesh through Speak Up. But here's where we're just getting kicked off. I mean, give us a bit of an introduction, help us get to know you, and a bit more of a snapshot of the work that you get to do with Speak Up.
Yeah, so I'm Troy Anderson. I'm actually a founder of Speak Up, and we work in Bangladesh predominantly now. Empowering and educating about 2,500 girls from very poor backgrounds who would otherwise be vulnerable to child marriage and other forms of exploitation that comes for girls in poverty. And so we raise money mostly in the West to fund young girls and now young women in the East who are vulnerable to these terrible things. And we work with girls starting in the 4th and 5th grade and educating and empowering them through school and giving stipends to hundreds of young women to get a higher education. So in the big picture, on one hand, we're stopping great evil and terrible things, really the greatest human rights issue in the world today, for my money, hundreds of millions of girls who are vulnerable to all kinds of terrible things. And on the positive side, helping turn many of them into young professionals who will not only have a better immediate family, but help their village and one day their entire region and country. So big picture, we're trying to create a new reality for girls in poverty. That's our tagline. But we're trying to help create a wave of young women who are changing the experience for girls in poverty.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, it sounds like, so this is something that starts very early on in these young girls' lives and continues on for quite some time, like you say, through education, even university opportunities and things like that. And so it's like a long experience for an individual who's involved, but then also just broad sweeping impact beyond just their own personal experience. Like, this is stuff that changes communities, it sounds like.
Yeah, that is. And that's starting to happen in the places we work. We're working now in 40 villages and slums in Bangladesh, in Western Bangladesh, based in the Khulna area. Most people never heard of it, but it's a major city, the kind of capital of Western Bangladesh. And, Bangladesh still has about 60 to 65% of girls are married before the age of 18. It's a number, it's kind of difficult to calculate because you have to do it in reverse by interviewing older girls or women. Okay. But that's still quite a high number. And in villages where we work, it's probably in the past likely would be 90, 95%, almost every girl, not all of them really young, but many age 16, 17, 18. The law in Bangladesh is 18 for child marriages, but some places where it's quite common or was 13 or 14. But yeah, the villages where we're working, even the girls kind of laugh and say, "No, there's not child marriage here, Uncle. What are you talking?" They call me Uncle, Troy Uncle. And they say, "What are you talking about?" Because I kind of talk with the little ones and it's a very open thing we talk about. And they say, "No, there's no child marriage here," because the little 12-year-old girl doesn't know what her own village was like 10 years ago. And now it's normal for girls to stay in school. And I say, well, I've been around longer than you've been alive, and it's not normal. But it is kind of normal now. So yeah, those small pockets. But years ago, we reached 30 villages. And then someone said, there's 30,000 villages in Bangladesh. And I was like, oh, I guess we got a long ways to go. And likely like 200, 300,000 villages in India with similar issues, depending on how you count. So we're having an impact in one area, but it's somewhat scratching the surface of what could be.
Yes, there's a lot of great work that's been done, and there's still a lot of great work to do, it sounds like.
Yeah. There's work for me and my team forever.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Man, what an amazing work that you get to be a part of. I'm excited. We're gonna drill down even deeper into this and to hear some more stories and things like that. And I'm really looking forward to it. But Troy, being on this podcast, you must also be an InterVarsity alum. And so I'd love for us to maybe turn back time a little bit here and just spend a little bit of time kind of exploring a little some of your InterVarsity experience, what that was like for you, and some of the ways that maybe that started to impact the work that you're doing today. So give us a history lesson here. What was that like for you?
Yeah, I mean, in summary, I did join InterVarsity for 3 years as a student, University of Puget Sound in Washington State, and then I went on InterVarsity staff for 7 years, including a volunteer year. We called it the apprentice staff team back then.
Yes.
But I grew up in a Christian family, but kind of by my last maybe year and a half in high school and my first year of college, I was not really into the faith and kind of not sure. I'd lived all over the world. My parents were international teachers, and I kind of had a scrambled background in a way, and kind of my mind was a little bit scrambled. But my sophomore year, I was looking to kind of do something, and someone invited me to a InterVarsity Bible study. And just like what really got me is I went to the first Bible study, Catherine, the staff worker then. And I wouldn't call myself a follower of Jesus at that point, but I knew, and I told her, I said, I don't need you to explain like the 4 spiritual laws, or like, I know the facts, in a way. I wasn't saying it arrogantly, but I grew up, I know the things, but I'm not interested if what you're doing is not relevant to the world. Cause I grew up in Yemen and Syria, predominantly, like when I was a kid, and saw a lot of poverty. And for me, one of the things that was profound when I did come to the faith then as a young man with InterVarsity was its connection to like real engagement with the poor and with real issues. And even in Muslim countries, kind of understanding like maybe just not all the Muslims are going to hell. Maybe like faith and life is more complex than that. And so I told Catherine the first Bible study, I said, like I've been in these places and I kind of care about the poor. Or, I mean, I wasn't like necessarily the most beautiful hearted person, I guess, but like I kind of, wanted to have if I wanted to interested in the faith, I wanted it to do something with real issues. And she said, we do these summer urban projects, and where we work then like in Seattle and Tacoma, and maybe not the most hardcore, but still some inner city areas. And then I think InterVarsity had this Habakkuk kind of project. I don't know if that might have been before your time, like this traveling, audio visual thing about justice. And with InterVarsity, we studied a lot of Amos, the prophet that I think most profoundly directly talked to, about deep social injustice. So as she explained that InterVarsity was into those kind of issues, I thought, oh, this is different than what I perceived most Christian groups as, which to me seemed like a lot of theology and being nice Christians, but not relevant to the poor or to real world issues. And so I joined, and long story short, I really got engaged. But the hook for me was seeing the staff workers. Catherine and Mark was the other one. Mark joined my intramural basketball team, and he's like the InterVarsity staff worker, and somehow he snuck on the team. And I remember thinking like, he's either really weird or he's really weird in the right way, because he was a graduate from University of Washington, as was Catherine. And I saw these are people who, maybe not as hardcore as like some missionaries going live in the slum somewhere, but they gave up their career to go work with students. And it really impressed me. This is what it was a reflection of real faith, people who had a career and money and like a path forward. And they instead said, I'm going to give myself to, lose my life to save it, which became, one of the core scriptures that we grappled with in those days through Mark study. So, wow. So I was impressed both by the concept that they were involved with the poor and justice, but also individual people who I was impressed with, like, oh, they're coming to hang out with students. And Mark was incarnational on my basketball team. Like, I thought that's a cool guy. So they impressed me, and I joined, and I really got hooked and made a community and a kind of family out of it.
Wow. That's really amazing that, you said you came into college not really looking to explore faith, maybe even having kind of stepped back from it. And then all of a sudden there's this opportunity to join a faith group and you're like, well, I don't want to do this unless there's real life application for what's going on, unless they're actually directing us to real world stuff that's happening, and that those things came together like in a way that provided global perspective for following Jesus and what it looks like, sort of boots on the ground ministry in the world, but also just in your own life, that it wasn't just a go do this out there, but that your staff workers were like, I want to do this with you in your life too, of being very purposeful and meaningful, and like this is something beyond just the text that we study. This is real life application here and now and in the broader world context.
Yeah, correct. And I think that there's, I don't know if it's easy, but it's possible to get one or the other in a lot of ways. There's a lot of people that and I think this is, frankly, we're not going to go deep in this, but like the problem with a lot of the American church, a lot of nice, good people, but like, do you really engage with the world? And then you can go out and try to, do whatever to serve other people. But, I know there can be a lot of emptiness and, despair, even when you give yourself to really difficult situations. You need to have something internal going on, but something that felt like it was meeting. I mean, 19, I wasn't like super deep, I suppose, at that point, but at some level it spoke to me like these people are real and they're going to go, we're going to go hang out and serve in the inner city. Like this is a real model of the faith that I could grab onto. So from early on, I was very, very impressed.
Yes. Yeah. It was nice to see people that had faith, not just with a faith that had a big brain, but faith that had hands and feet as well. They would actually like go do the things that they were learning about in practical ways. That's really powerful. I mean, that's a really amazing picture to paint. And I mean, in a timely thing for us to be considering today of what does that look like? So Troy, when you graduated, like, did you know that Speak Up was the next thing, or, how was it that you went from InterVarsity on campus to Speak Up, founding Speak Up?
So I went on InterVarsity staff because I was at that point my senior year. I basically was like a major in InterVarsity. I mean, I was getting my degree, but like a lot of student leaders, that was like my full-time job almost. So I went on what we called apprentice staff, and then they invited me on full-time staff at Washington State University because I really loved what we were doing. And for me, I was similar to like how I described at the start. I was, maybe there's a spectrum of people, but I was less on the evangelical side, but more on the side of like, I'm really excited if people say they follow Jesus, let's teach people to take that seriously so we can equip people to go out and be world changers. We're going to use your lingo. So I really loved being on staff in that way. But and I was for 7 years kind of my volunteer year, but inside of me, I always knew like I lived in these other countries and I kind of look all American. I wear my baseball cap and I love sports. And so I'm totally American, but there's a side of me that was also international. And so I always knew I wanted to do something more. And I ended up working with Servant Partners, which was a Christian urban ministry that came out of InterVarsity on the West Coast. And so I worked with Servant Partners in LA for a while, working in East LA, working with mostly Mexican American immigrants. And you can imagine all kinds of issues with that. But even in that, as that was growing, I was like, I like the US inner city, but I'm really made for something more. And so we can get into more, but how Speak Up came out of me going to law school. One day I was reading a scripture and it's in Proverbs 31. When I told my mom, she said, "Oh, finally you've met a girl," Proverbs 31, those famous verses. Yes. And I said, well, actually it's the verses after that. And the verse that say, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves," which became the name of the organization. And I remember I read that verses, it's Proverbs 31, 8 and 9, "Speak up for the rights of all the poor and the needy." I said, that's what I want to do. I want to have that even on my business card. Even Speak Up, and it said advocate or abogado, and it was a lawyer in Spanish. And I thought I should go be a lawyer for the poor. I wanted to be a lawyer when I was a kid. So I was always fascinated with politics and kind of things. And like all the presidents are lawyers or all the congressmen. But now I thought this is 20 years ago now, I thought now I could go to law school as not just going to build my life like as a rich guy or be powerful, but go with a purpose to serve the poor. So in law school, around that time, I'm kind of rambling. This is a long version of the story, but
that's great.
During that time, I started reading a lot about the commercial sex industry and internationally forced prostitution, and very end of the 90s, early 2000s, human trafficking was kind of becoming a term that people were more broadly familiar with and reading a lot about. And so I kind of shaped my law school experience with volunteering with some organizations and learning about those issues, which, and I can get into more of that, but led me to speak up to do something directly on issues of commercial sexual exploitation and discrimination against women and things like that.
Yeah.
Very
Troy,
long strokes. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's super helpful. I love hearing those pieces. This is a diverse puzzle. There's lots of different things that have influenced you and been important in this process. Is there something that you can name that makes this particular area of speaking up for the poor, human exploitation, sex trafficking, these Is there something that you can put your finger on that you're like, this is what it is about this that like stirs my heart, that makes this be the place that I want to invest my life?
Yeah. So when I was in law school, I went to Thailand and then India and did a little work in Thailand, northern Thailand and Burma, and ended up volunteering with organizations that were working on human trafficking issues, kind of the legal side of it, and some of the rescues, some aftercare. But the first, the summer after my first year of law school, I was in northern Thailand and working both with IJM, which everyone knows about IJM, and with some other volunteering, other Thai police and stuff. And I would go in India, the same thing, where I was like, I'm a law student. They're like, well, you don't speak Hindi or Thai or Burmese. Your law experience is irrelevant anyway, but you actually, they'd say this nicely, but like you kind of look like one of the sex tourists. I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of white guys that it's not only white Americans, but so I did some undercover work with those groups and other ones in India too. And I basically going into places where the one that's most profound was in northern Thailand with Burmese girls, where very young girls who were probably 10 or 11 years old were in this brothel where you go in kind of a bar, then you go upstairs when you've convinced them. You'd go in pretending, and any man who wants to do this stuff, you can't do it alone. And there's things to be smart, but I was with the Thai person. We were kind of pretending that I was a customer trying to find young girls to purchase. Yeah. And I sat there, you have a beer, kind of pretend like you're a jerk, and you look at the girls, and these little girls came out, and it just was so disturbing. And
my gosh,
that moment, you never touch someone, but you kind of pretend, oh, she's cute, and you're kind of acting like a jerk to kind of, you have a hidden camera, getting pictures, whatever. And
yeah, I
remember going home and I would physically vomit when I was done, because it was so profoundly just evil and horrible. Yeah. I mean, it's terrible, any kind of prostitution, but expect with younger girls at a whole different level. And so there was a way that as I learned about these issues and then saw that stuff firsthand and even had a deep emotional reaction, we were going to Thailand one summer, and a pastor before said, when you go to places, you can't do a lot on a summer mission or just and you'll see a lot of terrible stuff and you might just cry. And sometimes that's all you can do. And I remember thinking, there's a team and I'm going to make sure, because some of my team might cry, and how am I going to take care of them? Yeah. Not thinking that it was going to be me. And the first time in Bangkok, I went into one of these brothels. This was girls who might have been 18, 19, 20, but they looked to them, and I kind of wished I could communicate to them, I'm really not here for you. I'm kind of faking it. But I just went home to the hotel and just cried and cried and cried. And my team was like, what's the deal? I'm like, I don't know. But so I think for me, there's certain things that women need to do, right? Like some of the aftercare and some parts of the ministry and stuff that only women can do. But there are certain things that anyone can do. And they're actually not just this undercover role, but there actually is a place for men to say what it means to be a man in the world is actually to tackle some of the things that, I mean, there's some women that run brothels like in Bangladesh, they call them mamasans, or in Thailand too. Some of the women are just as nasty as the men, but there's a place for men to fight this great evil and to give their lives to it. So I think it hits me like, I realized there might be 10 or 12 big issues in the world, like ultimate kind of issues, like AIDS or famine or, war. But like this issue of the commercial sex industry is certainly one of them. And one of the most profoundly evil, because it's not just a happenstance. It's something that we have created intentionally to exploit people. And then as a man, it has to disturb you if you have any kind of character at all. And so those different threads, I think, came together in me understanding like this is one of those ultimate things. And there is a place, not just the undercover work, but even just demonstrating. So like in Bangladesh, we do more the prevention stuff than like working directly with removals and stuff. But being a man who's uncle to these girls who they can trust and they know is not going to abuse them, and I'm not there for it, there is a place for men to do that. So I think deeply, at the deepest part of my identity, I thought this is a place that good men need to go and give their lives. And at a deeper level, I could put my life to this because it's about sexism. It's about the economy. It's a big international issue. And I thought I could give my life to this broadly because I'll never get my mind all the way around it, but it touches me deeply as a man. Because if you think about it, these 10 or 11-year-old girls locked up, it's just the ultimate manifestation of taking our worst impulse to objectify a girl. It's just taking it to its logical but evil extreme. Like, well, why don't you just take the ones who we think are cute and have sex with them whenever we want? I mean, it's taking that impulse. And I think, men don't have to feel like it's not my fault, but it's somewhere on the spectrum. And another way, I think that, being on staff and any kind of working with men, you deal with the spectrum of issues, everything from, man, I just struggle with how do I not lust after women, or how do I just treat women well, to pornography, to whatever kind of things. And they're actually, again, done right and done in with the right partnerships and stuff. There's a place that instead of just being on the defensive, being on the offensive, like I can actually do something about the global part of this, actually is healing for men. Does that make sense?
Wow.
So, because I think it's a good thing if you have men accountability group, and let's talk about our struggles with pornography, like whatever, those things are good in their place. But if you're always on the defensive, I think it's not right. So you can actually be on the offensive, like let's go and love people again with the right constraints and stuff. Like you have to be really careful, but let's go love people instead of let's just protect ourselves from the world. And there's actually freedom, I think, that men. So part of and I don't really have a men's ministry side of what I'm doing, but part of what I like and part of what I'd love to do, even connection with InterVarsity, is help men be good men in the world, both for the sake of the world, but both for their own sake, because being in the struggle is good for your heart. So
yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, that aligns so closely with the story that you told about your involvement with InterVarsity, in my mind, at least, that you're not looking for something that's just about, not that this is wrong, but that it's not just about some measure of personal holiness, that it is also about what does it look like to live this out in a way that impacts the world around you. To say that what I believe about these things isn't just for me and me staying away from from evil things. It is also about helping to snuff out evil where it lives in the world around me. And what does it look like for me to live into that?
Yeah. And it's like, you think of the perfect Venn diagram that, like, I could say to a young woman in our program, this is going to be really good for you, right? To be a part of this. And to the country of Bangladesh, like, get behind us. This is really good for your country. Like, we heard the great speech that motivated one day. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh said, "Oh, we need 10,000 nurses." And she's talking about all the problems. And I thought, like, we'll give you 1,000 nurses ourselves. And I moved from just thinking, oh, we're fighting this terrible evil, which we are, to, oh, these girls are actually the solution to what the world needs. And when I realized that, I went from I like to fight. And just 2 days ago, we got a father and a husband of an illegal marriage sent to jail for a year because they married off a 14-year-old girl. I like to fight. I mean, someone should visit those guys in jail and they shouldn't be locked away with no key, but like you need convictions. But I like to fight, but even better is the fight, but there's a positive side to it. But then the Venn diagram is like, but people involved in the struggle, like me, it's actually a good place for me to find life. So if you can find that Venn diagram of connection, maybe that's for your other podcast of people finding those three pieces, then you can find something that's really meaningful to give your life to.
Yeah. I love that. I really love that. Troy, I'm thinking about you mentioned that that this is not that the work that you're doing with Speak Up is way more about prevention and sort of getting to the problem before it even happens. And so can you tell us a little bit more, like just practically, what does the work that you all are doing through Speak Up, what does that look like just on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, so the main thing we're doing in the 40 locations it's 37 villages and 3 slums. So is giving tutoring, or they call it tuition, but basically after school tutoring and education program to keep girls in school. Because the main direct issue we're facing is child marriage. Like I said, officially 65%, probably 80% or more in the villages where we work. Girls being married off before the age of 18. And so by keeping them in school, you empower them to build their lives and see, we start with them when they're 9, 10, 11 years old, because by the time they're 13, 14, they start facing these pressures or just they get married off. So we don't run schools. So they go to public schools, but we keep the girls in school. But then the tutoring program is really just the tip of the iceberg, because we have all kinds of computer training and bicycle training so that they can get to work. Giving many of them jobs. We have about 50 young women who we call interns that are intern teachers. We have a bunch of, endless training seminars on different kind of topics. We have 2 dormitories, one for high school girls. So from these 40 locations, the girls who have the worst situations come and live in our dorm. So anyone who comes and visits our dormitory, they live in our dorm, but go to high schools around the city. Anyone who comes there, I say the girls won't tell you, because if you ask them why they're there, they'll say, oh, I want to get a good education, which is true. But really, they're living in a dorm because they were married and we broke it up, but they're only 15 and they were married illegally, or they were being sexually abused or about to be, or we knew they were about to be married off, or maybe they had a boyfriend, the bad boy, is the term they use, they were going to run off with. And so everything involving gender and marriage for the most part. And so we have a safe place for those girls. We have a dormitory for about 80 young women in higher education, but we even have hundreds more that are around the country that we give stipends to stay in nursing school and other higher education. So basically we keep girls in school so that by the time they're 13, 14, 15, they're realizing, oh, I do want to be a nurse or a teacher or something. It's not just something they all repeat it when they're 10. They know how to say the right thing, but they start owning it. They start realizing, oh, the girls will come to me and say, oh, now I know why you've been saying you hate child marriage for so many years. I'm like, because now they start seeing the pressure coming to them. So we keep girls in school. And so there's like a decent chance probably now that a girl who joins our program in the 5th grade has probably about 60 to 70% chance of her finishing higher education. That's kind of our stats. About maybe even a little bit more than that, but about, maybe closer to 70% will actually finish high school and then get into higher education, when without help, these girls, 1%. Literally, you can't contemplate 2%, because villages where just everyone gets married off quite young, and then you're just going to go live with your in-laws. So and the way this is a preventative, it directly prevents child marriage, right? Because that's like every one of we have little schoolrooms, like in every village called learning centers. They have our propaganda posters say no child marriage, and we talk about it at every meeting. And that's when I would say, like with the little girls, like, oh, so who's getting married this year? Kind of joking. And they'll say to me, uncle, there's in this village, Panjia, the girls don't get married young. What are you talking about? Totally innocently. And
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, now you see your village completely different because,
Yeah.
8 years ago was not like that. So we prevent
Wow.
child marriages. But the thing is, people, even in the West, and maybe like I've like 15 years ago, didn't really think about child marriage as this global issue, but there's something like they say 400 or 500 million women alive today in the world who are married as children, like a huge
Wow.
percentage of that in South Asia because of huge populations, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Nepal. But
Okay.
um, the it's part of the greater exploitation of young girls and just the way that girls are objectified just for basically you're good for your body for cooking and cleaning.
Mm.
But it itself can actually be a lead into other forms of exploitation. So if let's say you're 19 years old, you're married at 15, you have a baby and you get divorced. So your birth family gave you away,
Yeah.
might not even know exactly where you are in some cases. The family you married into divorces you and sends you off. So what are you going to do? You're completely uneducated. So many of the
Wow.
brothels in South Asia are full of women who were either born, their mother was in prostitution, so they just grow up in it and become exploited, or they have to go there because they have no other choice. And I've met women
Wow.
like that who are like, what was I going to do? I was 17. I had 2 babies. No one wanted me. So I
Yeah.
came here, and you have to have great respect. Like, in a hellish existence, but she
Yeah.
chose that because she wanted to feed her children. So stopping child marriage and the broader kind of objectification of young girls can help stop either that indirect path to prostitution or girls being trafficked.
Yeah.
Or girls being abducted, or just all kinds of things that come from girls who are not empowered to be able to see their own worth, or that you have some agency to build your own life.
Yeah. Wow. Troy, after all this time that you've spent and all these people that you have gotten to engage with, these young girls that have been calling you uncle all this time, do you have a story or two that you can share with us that that just paints a further picture of what this is like for a real person that you've known?
Sure. So I'll tell you a few stories, all from one village.
Okay.
Right. So
All right.
think of this village of Kashipur. This is a real name. I'll put fake names to the girls. So if I get the names mixed up, it's because I'm going to use fake names. But
okay.
But Kashipur is a real village. We have about 100, 110 girls and young women involved in our program at this time. And it's kind of a rolling group. 10 or 20 will graduate and new little ones will join. So
Okay.
first time I went to Kashipur, and I'll tell individual stories, but very first time I went, I remember exactly. We went there to see if this was a village to expand to, and 54 girls came to the meeting with parents, right? So
Okay.
little ones all the way through, and I counted them. There's 54 girls. So we went through. I said, "How many are in 10th grade?" And there's no one. Oh, and how many in 9th grade? Maybe one. How many in 8th grade? Maybe two. And I remember that we went down into 5th grade. There was 27, exactly half. And I thought, something either was in the water in this village. Everyone had girls the same year, or the older girls are not interested in coming, or the older girls are just not around because they've all been married. So it's not like the 10th graders didn't come to the meeting. The 10th graders who were there came to the meeting. There's only one or two of them. They were just not there because they're all married. This is a predominantly Hindu area, this village. And it's a particularly kind of militant Hinduism in this village, if that term makes sense. So I said to my partners, this is the perfect village. These 27 girls are like, we're going to get them in our tutoring program when they're 5th and 6th grade year, and it's perfect. And most of those girls, this is like 11 years ago. So most of those girls finished 12th grade, and like half of them are now still in higher education. But of those groups, one girl, I'll call her, let's say, Onita. Looks like Anita. They call it Onita, a common name there.
Okay.
She was in our program briefly a couple years later. Then she was gone. And then one day she came back to me as I kind of roam around, kind of like Pied Piper. Everyone follows. Oh, the foreigner's here again. And she comes up and she's just weeping. And she said, they call me uncle. And I said to her, Onita, aren't you married now, or what are you doing back here? And she said, well, my husband is abusing me. She's speaking in Bangla, and especially then my Bangla was much worse. It's still not perfect, but
Okay.
my translator kind of team helping me, but she's saying she's being abused by her husband and she wants to leave him and get back in school. And so she's at this point maybe 17. Imagine she'd already been in our program for a year or two, left, got married, now is coming back. She didn't have kids, which made it easier for her to go back home. And I said, yeah, we'll like take you back in the program. Like, even if you were married, it's not a legal marriage because under 18 is illegal, but you have to do some paperwork with the temple or something, just make sure. But I said, we'll take you back in our program for sure. But I knew for her, it was an arranged marriage, which is quite common there. It wasn't her choice, but partly she kind of liked the guy and she kind of partially kind of ran away with him too. And so I said, you need to promise me, like, if you're going to come back, we're going to support you. And she said, yeah, I want to be a teacher or a nurse. She ended up being a nurse. You need to promise me that you are going to stay in school and you're not going to leave again. And she says, no, uncle, I know what it's like. And what she was referring to was either physical abuse, certainly mental abuse from her mother-in-law. Because what happens, her mother-in-law was married when she was 13 or 14, then become a slave to her in-laws. And so this girl, Anita, is now becoming almost like a slave servant to her mother-in-law and really abuse and probably some form of sexual abuse too, and this is not to denigrate like entire cultures, because like certainly in the West, we know like our major problems. Anytime I talk about things, I say like, I'm helping direct stuff like really directly against things in your country, but it's not because my culture has it figured out. Like we're the opposite. We have our own problems, right?
Yes.
But I said, I mean, so for her, she was likely there, like in some countries, spousal rape is not a crime, right? It's just, well, she's my wife. How could it be rape? And so there's probably things that were going on that she couldn't really talk about, but like she kind of broadly talked about it in terms of abuse. But she came back to our program and we kind of said, okay, if you're serious, we'll have you back and we'll put you through school. And she came and lived in our senior dorm and went through nursing school and now is a nurse. And like, they say that kind of matter of fact, that's like 6-7 years of that process. But that is an example of one girl, like on this side, I said, like some of the worst stuff you can imagine, where she was partly responsible. When you're 14, like how responsible are you really? But that she was sent off to a child marriage, had a terrible experience being abused. And that abuse, like I said, could have been multidimensional and really terrible, but was able to put her life together and be a nurse. I mean, she's not like rolling in the dough. She lives pretty simply and stuff, but that also is what Bangladesh needs, right? She's one of the 10 or 20,000 nurses that the country needs. And she's Hindu. Bangladesh about maybe 8, 9, 10% Hindu. But it's exactly what the country needs. And so both of those are happening in her story. And so that I could tell you a few more stories just from Kashipur, but that's like one example of one of the ones that I tell people, because from that, and then we helped break up the child marriage. And now she's a professional. Like, we need to do that like literally 100 million times over and the world would be changed.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Troy, do you have stories of anybody that has gone through the program and has come back to like continue to work with you professionally in this program as well? We have, I always tell people it's 11 or 12, right? This exact moment that are on our staff. So that like 2 on our college team, we have 5 people that are basically like staff workers, because we have about 360 young women in we call it the college GEP, Girls Empowerment Program, or sometimes Girls Education Program. About 360 young women in mostly around Khulna, but in some cities and colleges around the country too. So these 5 are like our staff. They're basically like staff workers, right? Okay. It's like InterVarsity staff workers, without the religion component, just keeping girls in school. And so of those 5, 3 are our girls that we worked with. Maybe they joined when they're 9th or 10th grade, but we put them through university. They're our staff. So
we kind of have two teams. We have our dorm, college, admin team in the city, and then the field team kind of out, the social worker team that kind of works out in the village areas.
Okay.
But so my office is with the city team. So every morning we have our little morning check-in meeting. How's everyone doing? And once in a while I catch myself because I come in there and I go, "Hey girls, this is happening in Bangla." But then I go, "Oh, sorry, you're the staff." I say, "Hi ladies." And then we kind of laugh because it looks like I'm coming into a high school meeting from 6 years ago, but they're not the high school girls. They're my staff now. So
wow.
and many of the social worker team, like 5 or 6 out in the field, I mean, who could be a better social worker than someone exactly coming from that environment?
Yes.
And they're not making a huge salary, but they might be making, even as 23, 24 years old, making more, or maybe half again as much as a man in their village who's a day laborer, a farmer, that don't have a lot of, money income. And so those girls are a great example to the whole village, both to the girls who see them and to the families who are like, "Oh, I want my daughter to be like that." I'm like, "Well, you should have believed me, because if you would have." But now the ones who have younger girls, I can say, "Yeah, look at Tolima.
Yes.
She's like on my staff team now, and she's making a good salary." So it's 11 or 12. I have to count more accurately, but yeah, that are our young women. Like I say, our girls, but they're not girls. They're young women that are our staff now. So it's awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow. Troy, I have a question that I ask everybody on this podcast that is purposefully obvious, but I like it because it's just interesting to me what it sparks for people when I ask this question. But that's, would you say that Speak Up and the work that you get to do with Speak Up is a place where you get to be a part of changing the world?
Yeah. I mean, it's undoubtedly that's like from our little tagline, "A new reality for girls in poverty," like my business card that says "Advocates for the Poor." Directly we are taking, now there's about 2,500 girls involved at different levels in our program, most of whom would be married as children, and keeping many of them to go to, I get sad if they get married when they're 18, but then even some of my donors say, "Troy, like, I'm okay, like better than nothing." I'm like, "Yeah, it is better than nothing," but we want them to go all the way to the end. But we're seeing literally hundreds and hundreds of girls who would have been married as children. And when you even to think, "Oh, what's so bad about marriage?" I mean, think about being married when you're 14. There's to a man you don't know. He's not going to be like super old. And this is Hindu and Muslim populations. Our program's about 50-50 Hindu and Muslim. We have a few Christians, but it's across all religions. But with no, or probably very, very little, if any, sex education, to a guy who might be 7 or 8 years older than you, but you likely don't know him. Maybe you met him once. It's not as traditional as maybe like in Yemen or like in Taliban areas or some things. Like, it's not as extreme with that, but still, instead of that, we have hundreds of girls in higher education now that are still struggling, but they have bank accounts. Most of them have jobs now, because part of our requirement is you're going to get a stipend. We give them a monthly stipend, but you have to have a job too to make even $20 a month. And I'm kind of like Dave Ramsey or like other like financial guys. I have my financial meetings teaching them budgeting, and like we're helping these girls get their life together, because there is a cycle of female poverty that wherever there's poverty, I mean, boys struggle, like boys in the brothel have a terrible time too, but at the bottom of the barrel experientially is girls in poverty. And we're taking, hundreds and hundreds of them, like now, when there's a couple thousand as a part of things, and they're having a completely different life experience. And I mean, that's changing one little piece. Like I said, it's maybe 1,000th of the villages in Bangladesh, but it's what we can do now. And so there's no doubt that world is being changed. And one day, hopefully it's going to keep growing when we have the resources to do that. But it's an awesome thing to be able to know that the world is being changed.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love it. And just the broad sweeping impact for the bigger community, for Bangladesh as a whole. And for, I don't know if there are people who travel abroad as a result of the training that they receive, the skill sets that they have, and the sort of like end up in other places where they're investing themselves because of the ways that they've been invested in. Either way, whatever it is, that this is more than just sort of individual life change, as if that wasn't enough, like to see somebody's life changed, but that there's a domino effect that's happening here, and it's an amazing story.
Yeah, definitely. And just think of the potential. Like people say, oh, you need to. I have a million ideas. I'm kind of visionary. So like think of how like if you go to a hospital in the U.S. now, there's a high likelihood there'll be a Filipino nurse, right? Because the Philippines has done a great job of sending out English-speaking nurses all over the world. It's great for them, and also remissions back to their country. I've talked to some people, Bangladesh needs to do a version of that, because there's not a lot of, there's not a lot of natural resources the country has. It's just like the whole country is this delta, river delta and stuff. But the one thing you have is, too many people. 170 million people in this small country. But I've thought of, what it'd be like if we could start sending out like hundreds and hundreds of nurses. They'd have to work on English, and their education isn't as far along as it is, like, for example, in the Philippines. But there could be things where instead of just thinking girls in poverty are a problem, it's like, no, we're the problem because we're stupid. We like exploit them. Or Bangladesh, even like the prime minister complaining, and I'm like, you have the people. Why don't you invest in them? Like, I'll do it with you. But if you think of it, not just like this girl is a problem. So even like a parent, sometimes they internalize, the girls internalize that the girl is a burden, right? Because she's vulnerable. So I'm just going to get her married off as soon as possible. But like, no, the girl is not a burden, like boy or girl. But for when your blind spot is toward the girls, your daughter is an asset. And for the country, your daughters are an asset. Like you could send out hundreds of thousands if you were smart as a country. So I think from the smallest individual village to like broader social policy, you could be smart in the world and say like, it's going to take 50 years, but let's change the way we treat the poor girls. And that would do a tremendous impact to the country. So maybe one day there'll be someone in Bangladesh who's like, hey, we need him to be our advisor and help us. And I would love to like build something. Let's send out 100,000 Bangladeshi nurses. So those things need to happen, and you could change the world at a fundamental level if girls from slums and villages everywhere were prevented from being exploited and were empowered, which is why I started with the dramatic things, like working on these undercover stuff and getting girls out, and it's cool. And it needs to happen. Tens of millions of dollars should go to those things when they're done correctly with the right organizations. Ideally, long-term local police and local authority dealing with their own problem in partnership with organizations as needed. But 95% of the resources should go to preventative stuff, because, you can take 100 girls out of the brothel and 10,000 will take their place. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You can take these 10 girls out of a child marriage, but 10 million will take their place. But you can build a wall, like, because I have girls that'll say like, uncle, I will not get married. Like when I'm young, and I say, well, what will happen with your dad? I'll come. Don't worry. I'll come to the dorm. If my dad forces me to get married, I'll get on the bus and come to the dorm. I say, okay, like we'll keep you safe. So if you recreate that in tens of millions of young girls, like one day you're going to have like an army of people that are like empowered. It will also improve guys, because guys are going to have to get their act together to marry those girls, right? Yeah. Because these girls, they're not gonna settle for the loser guy who says, "Oh, I just want you to stay home and wash the floors." Like, oh, I guess I got to have a decent job too. So you can see I've thought of these things a lot, but empowering girls. There's other things worth doing, but for me is one of the money spots, like to put our billions. And it will change lives, families, villages, but entire regions potentially.
Yeah. Troy, I love the vision. I love the passion, just the major investment. As our listeners are tuning in and hearing these stories, like if they'd like to keep learning more, can you, and we'll put it in the show notes, but can you just direct people to how to connect with Speak Up, or how to keep learning and supporting? What does that look like for our listeners?
So our website is speakupforthepoor.org. So we're known as Speak Up and Speak Up Bangladesh over there, but officially it's speakupforthepoor.org is our website.
Okay.
And like any organization, we like donors. You can easily set up a donation. One thing specifically people do is sponsor one girl for $40 a month. So we have about 900 girls sponsored now, which brings in about $35,000 a month, which is about little over half of our income. And that's pooled to keep the other 1,000 girls who don't have sponsors. It keeps them all in school, getting all the many, many services that we provide. So sponsoring a girl would be great for like a graduate, even a student, a young graduate, to give $40 a month, or someone who wants to donate more seriously. Sometimes people say, like, Troy, what do you need? And I say, like, okay. And I work in a very religious environment with Muslims and Hindus, and then speaking to InterVarsity, a Christian audience, assuming that we're on the side of God and we have God. Other than God, like, what do you need? I say you need three things. You need a good idea or a system. You need money, and you need people, right? So we have a great system now. I mean, I could tell you 100 problems every day. I'm pulling out my hair. My hair is getting white but generally we have a good system that's replicable across Bangladesh or other countries. And I'm training up people. Even as I mentioned, we're training up our girls to be the bulk of our staff one day. And I still need to train people, but the thing we obviously need is finances. So whether people who want to join us as individual sponsors, and they'll have one girl, you can't save the world, but you can have this one little sixth grade girl represent to you this broader issue, and you'll get letters from her and pictures and stuff. And but that's a great way, an on-ramp for people who have more resources, who are like, I want to give myself to something huge. There's not much bigger than tackling the broader global issue of exploiting girls in poverty. So we're looking for people who want to invest heavily. Like I could now take $1 million donors and say, we will build our organization from something that is, helping 2,500 girls to helping 10,000 girls in Bangladesh, and one day in Nepal and India, and expanding. So, but the easiest on-ramp is for people to go to our website, speakupforthepoor.org, and be a donor.
Okay.
They can email me, tanderson@speakupforthepoor.org. I know it's a long one, but that's it. And our Facebook is Speak Up Girls Education Program. So in the West, we call it education program. There, it's empowerment program. But anyone can email me or contact us on our Facebook page, or see our stuff on our website and be a donor there. But the Facebook and Instagram that's connected with it have the weekly updated pictures of the girls. So but send me an email, and I'll talk to anyone who wants to get on board, and talk to any like church or mosque or any organization, any business that wants to get a part of thing. And the great thing is that other than the extreme fringes, you can imagine there's some extreme fringe of people that say, Troy, you're not doing this evangelical thing. So they don't like it. And the other extreme, and we haven't talked about this, is that it's sometimes elephant in the room. Troy, you're a white American Christian, educated lawyer, heterosexual, like you fit every version of the man. And some people don't like, what are you doing talking about brown girls?
Yeah.
And I tell to them, like, well, the brown girls don't care. They're happy they're not being raped. I mean, like, boiling it down to one sentence.
Yeah.
So I've been to the other extreme. I'm like, well, actually, I think the work of Jesus is keeping girls out of child marriage. Even if you don't like that we're not preaching the gospel, I think, like St. Francis, we're preaching the gospel, the good news, in a different way. But other than those narrow extremes, I think 98% of the world could get behind us and say, let's do this thing. So if you want to get behind us, go to our website, speakupforthepoor.org, and be a donor, or send me an email, tanderson@speakupforthepoor.org.
Oh, that's
sorry,
awesome.
That was maybe more than you wanted for my little self-promo.
That's great. No, that's fantastic. Troy, thank you so much thanks for being here, for sharing the story. Thanks for letting us be part of stewarding the story along with you. And thank you for the work that you are doing. You are a part of changing the world and empowering others to change the world around them as well. And we think that's pretty phenomenal work to hear about our alumni doing that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. And like I said, like it's my Venn diagram of win, 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 that it's hopefully like encouraging you. I mean, you'll be my friend and maybe I'll see you one day, but like, hopefully it's encouraging to the InterVarsity audience and some of them will even get involved. But it's obviously a win for me to spread the word out. And I'm hoping even some of my old staff friends and students will see this one day and maybe that'll give a boost to your viewership. But yeah, it's a great pleasure. And I don't know if you remember, but I reached out because I saw something on an InterVarsity email about alumni businesses or something.
Yes.
They said, well, you don't really have a business, but you'd even be better on the podcast. So no, I'm glad to be here and look for any opportunity. And I think that if nothing else, like what we're doing can model that beyond InterVarsity, we can have people of all faiths and backgrounds come together to tackle some of the greatest problems on the earth and present like real solutions to those kind of things. And it's a great place for people who call themselves followers of Jesus to say, this is one way to live out what it means to be righteous or a good person, is to speak up for the poor. So that's why I do what I do, and love to have InterVarsity people involved. So I'm thankful for the time.
Thanks for tuning in, alumni. If you know someone who would enjoy the InterVarsity World Changers podcast, please be sure to share the episode with them. You can also support the podcast by leaving a rating and a review or by visiting our donation page in the show notes. InterVarsity World Changers is brought to you by the InterVarsity Alumni Relations Team, hosted and produced by John Steele, production assistance by Mike Centera, and edited by Caleb Leppert. Our theme song is Crazy by InterVarsity alumnus Andy Mineo. Go change that world, alumni.